The best day of my life was the day the doctors told me I had a 12-centimeter tumor above my heart. Not because cancer is good, but because for a year my body had been whispering quietly, but consistently, and I brushed it off because so did everyone else. I had aching pains in my neck and shoulders that I learned to live around. It was so sensitive that even after 5 minutes of studying, it could be set off, and I was in an immense amount of pain. And then in one moment, I finally had an answer, and my life started to make sense again. I know what you're thinking. What's wrong with this girl? Like, what happened in her life that was so bad that made this the best day of her life? And well, honestly, nothing. I've had a wonderful life, a kind brother, warm parents, loving grandparents, friends who have shown up like family, and a wonderful boyfriend. And I'm the youngest, which basically means I have been spoiled for just way too long. So no, this isn't coming from some dark backstory. This was a defining moment, one that split my life in a before and after. It was December 16th, 2022. And for a year up until this point, nothing quite made sense. I had pain that was easy to minimize, and every time I tried to explain it, well, I felt like I was overreacting. I remember once before a doctor's appointment, I rehearsed my symptoms in the car so I wouldn't sound so dramatic. And when it was over and I was left still without answers, I sat in the parking lot with this shame, like I had failed a test I didn't study for. And in one moment, everything changed. They sat me down at 19 years old and told me I had a 12-centimeter tumor wedged between my heart and lung, and I most likely had late-stage blood cancer, lymphoma to be exact. And the strange truth is that was the best day because that was the first day I stopped doubting myself. That was the first day my body wasn't being dramatic. And that was the first day that I had a name to what had been going on and a plan to fight it. Up until then, the hardest thing in my world was getting an A+ in all my exams, to be honest. That day didn't just scare me, it woke me up. And it taught me a life without adversity can do you more harm than good. Because how are you ever supposed to be grateful for a life you never had to fight for? And that day, I started fighting for mine. A week before I was diagnosed, I was sitting in a biochem lecture, learning about cancer. Ironic. We learned about all the ways cancer can start. Mutations, cells dividing when they shouldn't. We talked about the body like it was a machine. And somehow the brain wasn't even a part of the conversation. And to be honest, I ate it up because I've always wanted to be a doctor. I loved the idea of understanding what was going on under the surface. Like if I memorized all the mechanisms, I could truly help people. If I understood biology, well, then I understood cancer. I realized quickly how little I actually knew because science can teach us what's going on inside the cell. But it doesn't prepare us to live inside the diagnosis. And it taught me something I wish we talked about more. Your mind isn't just along for the ride. It changes how you cope, how you adapt, how you move through uncertainty. Treatment matters, early detection matters, but so does what you tell yourself in the moments you're alone. I used to think of research and as medicine, and I'm sure if your life doesn't revolve around science, you think this too. It's something clinical, almost distant, like white coats and discoveries in a lab. Cancer forced me to see it in a way that was actually humane. Because the minute you're the one in the gown, you realize how much power lives in language. How when you're sitting across a medical professional, the silence can be loud. A sentence can calm your nervous system or set it on fire. A label can make you feel seen or dismissed. And after a hard sentence, their nod, their half smile, that lands in your body too. Cancer also taught me about healthcare, and it's something we talk about all the time. Healthcare is so complicated. It's not about good intentions and medicine. It's about access, timing, who you get matched with, who's willing to listen past the obvious explanation, listen past what's likely going on. And when you're young, people don't expect cancer. So the story becomes stress, anxiety, or as a young woman, being dramatic. That's why this talk today isn't just about the science. It's about the mind-body connection of moving through uncertainty. Volunteering in oncology and being treated in oncology myself, it brought the facts to life in a way that no lecture ever could. And it showed me who research in this medicine's actually for. Because it isn't just for people in white coats and with 10 letters after their name. Research starts with a question, asking, why does this make sense? And not the type of research that leads to a 2 a.m. Google search and you convince yourself you have like a rare disease, because you probably don't. The type of research with real follow-through. For me, it came in the most unexpected place while I was sitting in chemo. I remember sitting there and thinking, why would I have cancer? And the only thing in my past medical history was mono. I had mono when I was young. Most people hear mono and think some stupid teenage illness, the kissing disease, a couple weeks of uncertainty, and we move on. The medical term for mono is Epstein-Barr virus. When I was diagnosed, I didn't just look for treatment options, I looked for the why. Why do I have lymphoma? And I kept seeing the same thing come up. EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, which is mono, is associated to lymphoma. And here's the simplest explanation to why scientists care. EBV is common, and unlike many viruses, it doesn't completely leave the body. It can go quiet, dormant inside your immune system. EBV particularly lives in B lymphocytes, a type of immune cell that's supposed to protect you. During latency, the virus isn't actively replicating, but it isn't silent either. It expresses viral proteins that change the way infected cells grow, survive, and avoid immune detection. And most of the time, your immune system keeps these B cells tightly controlled. But it's in these rare conditions, genetic backgrounds, immune conditions, or environmental conditions, that this control can weaken. And when that happens, B cells accumulate mutations, resist cell death signals, and they proliferate abnormally. And this is where the connection to lymphoma comes in. Because in specific lymphoma subtypes, like in the one I had, Hodgkin's lymphoma, scientists consistently find EBV positive tumor cells, meaning the virus is active within the cancer cells themselves. Most of the time, your body keeps this under control, but it's in these rare conditions, under whatever circumstance, that the progression can happen. But I want to assure you, and this distinction matters, having EBV does not mean you will develop lymphoma. So I feel like most of you guys have probably had it. You can calm down. We can look at EBV like a piece of a much larger puzzle, and it's under these certain conditions that it leads to the progression of lymphoma. But scientists aren't sure why this progression is happening in some and not in others. And my first research question wasn't even about what's the cure for this, how do we stop this? It was a very simple chicken or egg question about which one came first. Was it EBV or was it lymphoma? Are these EBV infected cells driving the growth of a tumor, or is it the tumor environment that's allowing EBV to grow? And the honest scientific answer for this is, well, we don't fully know yet. But that uncertainty changed how I looked at early detection. Because if blood cancer is happening in the blood, why did it take so long to look where it actually mattered? My research shifted. I now work as a research assistant in early detection, using electrochemical biosensors in a way that could actually fit into clinical care. We look for biomarkers, disease-related biomarkers. A biomarker is basically a fingerprint. Tiny evidence that something's changing before we can see it on the outside. In my case, I'm looking for biomarkers or fingerprints linked to EBV positive biology. Signals that can show up in lymphoma pathways. Because right now we don't have a widely used screening blood test to detect lymphoma like we do for other diseases. The waiting matters. It doesn't just delay treatment. It changes everything. It decides how long you live in limbo, how long you have to convince other people that you're not making up these symptoms. And when you're young, cancer isn't expected, so delays become normalized. The waiting isn't neutral. It changes how you trust your body, how you show up in your life. And frankly, I couldn't believe that we hadn't come up with a solution already. And there's data to show just how heavy this can get on some people. In Canadian data, 21% of young women with chronic pain report a mood disorder, like depression. So the waiting doesn't just delay treatment, it genuinely reshapes you. If my mindset when I had been diagnosed was, my life's over, can't believe I'm going to be bald, why me? Well, I don't think I would have gotten into research. Not pretending everything was fine, not forced positivity, but a shift towards meaning and action. What can I do with the cards I've been dealt? And that's why I call this the best day of my life. I went on to complete 12 rounds of chemotherapy. And after my first round, I woke up the next morning and the pain was gone immediately. It was the first time in a year my body went quiet and I realized just how loud I'd been living. And in that moment, everything I'd been doubting, questioning, finally made sense. I remember telling my doctor, the pain is gone, and he could not believe it. I never doubted, not once, that I wouldn't be here with you all one day. Today, I am cancer-free, and I've applied to medical school in the hopes of taking everything this experience has taught me and to continue learning how to not just diagnose people's pain, but truly understand it. Cancer taught me that strength doesn't look like pushing through. Strength looks like listening, asking better questions, trusting your body and your mind, even if the answer isn't sure yet, even if everybody around you is telling you you're wrong. My mind didn't cure my cancer, but it changed the space between appointments. It ensured I didn't make uncertainty into a new personality. If there's one thing I hope you carry with you after today, and I know I carry with me as a researcher, as a former patient, as somebody who still wants to be a doctor, it's this. Your body speaks long before it screams. Curiosity changes how we see obstacles. And belief, real belief, changes what we're willing to attempt. And when those two come together, we don't become fearless. We become willing. Thank you.